Shalom. First, we give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Kakadash. Dove honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing to the son, Siakim, pushing his truth. Follow the world, Shalom, keep pushing. We're going to get straight into it. Psalms 83. It says, Keep not thou silence, O Yahweh. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh. So yeah, keep not thy silence, O Yahweh. Hold not thy peace. Verse 2, For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they have hate thee have lifted up the head. So yeah, Most High, don't be silent on this, Move on these heathens, thy enemies of the nation of Israel. Hold not thy peace. And the opposite of peace is war, and be not still. Because like I said in verse 2, our enemies make a tumult. They that hate thee have lifted up the head. So the nation of Israel has enemies. And we need to ask the Most High, Yahweh, why? Yahweh Shai, both of them really Yahweh Shai, because Yahweh Shai is dealing with us right now. But the Most High Yahweh is dealing with the nation of Israel as a whole, but not right now. That Yahweh Shai is. You know what I'm saying? Because enemies have made a tumult. They plot against the nation of Israel. They come together. They band together and figure out how can they keep these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans down. How can they put more laws, enforce more hell on Jake? And that's what they do. So these heathens outside of the nation of Israel are not our friends, they're our enemies. 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Yeah, they taken crafty counsel against us. Like I just said, and they get together, they come with all these laws, these statutes and limitations and stuff. Really. Most of these articles of laws they have for Jake. These laws don't apply to the so-called white man here in America. If he's just been wicked as I don't know outdoors and won't change his way, they'll throw him in prison for 20 years or whatever. But it's got to be something real bad, or he's exhausted all his, he's worn out his welcome, so to speak. With these so-called white people in these court systems, then they'll throw him away. But if it's something minor, a couple offenses, they'll slap him on the wrist and get him on out of jail or prison early. They let them white boys free, them so-called white boys free. Even Tupac talked about that in one of his songs. I forget what it was, but he was like, when they release these so-called white boys, they be shocked. Why? Why should you be shocked? This is their kingdom. You so-called Negroes, Latinos who fill up the prison system, that's really built for you. And these so-called white people and these heathens have consulted against our hidden ones. They always consulting how can they get a plan together to come against us. How to inflict more pain, injury, anguish upon the nation of Israel. Verse 4, they have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, and that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. So yeah, they done that. Years past. We didn't know who we were. My pops, my great granddaddy, my granddaddy, my grandma and all them, they never called themselves Israelites. They called themselves black. That's just from what I can remember. Even my great grandma, great pa, I never heard them say they was an Israelite. On both sides, my mom or my dad's side, none of them, uncles, nothing. So we didn't know who we were. But now, all that's come to a head now. Now you got more and more jade waking up, but these heathens, to get back to the point, They tried their best, especially so-called white men, to hide this truth that we are the nation of Israel. Verse 5, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Yeah, they consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee to keep you so-called Negroes, especially you so-called Negroes, especially from the tribe of Judah, to keep you down in the ground as low as a worm could possibly be. You know? Whether it's killing you in the streets, putting you in Section 8 housing, in the projects, in prison systems, in the worst schools possible, the worst neighborhoods possible. They've done that. And then they're going to have to pay for that. And it says they are confederate against thee. Yeah, they are confederate. There's no, they are these nations, these nation of people outside the nation of Israel. They have they disagreements and things of that sort, but they all come together and hate the nation of Israel on one accord. They seem to put all their differences away. They seem to put all them differences away, but come together and put hell on Jake with ease. Whether it's putting crappy restaurants and gas stations in your neighborhood, cheap liquor, fried food, deep fried food, snacks, candy, sodas, all the junk these heathens open up in our store. In our neighborhood, Salakia. They do these things. Verse 6, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarenes. Yeah, the tabernacles of Edom is the first nation on the precept here. The so-called white people, the Ishmaelites, the so-called Arabs of Moab, the so-called Chinese, so-called Asians, and the Hagarenes, so-called Africans, Ham, Cabal, and Ammon, the so-called Japanese, and Amalek, the so-called Jews, the Philistines, more Hamites, with their tabernacle of Tyre. So pretty much everybody that's outside of the nation of Israel is against the nation of Israel. But who's spearheading the whole thing is Esau Edom, the so-called white man, with Ishmael. Them people over in the Middle East call themselves Arabs. They're against the Elamites, the Indians, the East Indians with the dots on their forehead. They're against you too. You curry eating, Indians. They're against Jake too. They can't stand Jake. Moab, so-called Chinese, man, feeding you bad chicken. If it's even chicken in them Chinese restaurants. Ishmaelites serving you all kind of pork stuff they don't eat, but they sell it to you. They sell it to you with no problem. But I just wanted to get into it because I got so many messages coming in on this thing. But, I pray this video is edifying. Until the sense y'all can keep pushing. Shalom.